you do enable your camera, please be aware that you will be recorded and we will share this on our YouTube channel. Also, if you do unmute your mic, you're more than welcome to do so. I like to talk to the people that are on the training webinars, but just remember you're going to be recorded and that will also then go on our YouTube channel. If you prefer not to be recorded, then you can always place a question in the conversation bar, which is like the little speech bubble in the middle, and I will come back to it periodically and answer any questions that may be in there. So without any further delay, I will get started and we can travel through how to get used to OneDrive and how to get the most from it. But at the same time, I appreciate that you may have questions, so drop them in at relevant pause points and we'll just address them as we come through. With OneDrive itself, I often get asked, well, how does the bigger picture fit together? Today, we are focusing almost solely on OneDrive. And OneDrive itself is for your personal files. It's not designed to be an area for whole school sharing. It's meant to be very much like the area you would have on your laptop or your desktop computer, or the personal private area you have on the server, where you can access your files and absolutely nobody else can get to them. So with that in mind, it's okay for sharing individual files, but it's not for selling bulk. You can think of it, if you want, like an analogy of having a USB stick like we used to, or a external hard drive, except all of your files are stored in the cloud. If your school has set up an Office 365 education tenancy, in other words, an education version of Office 365, that data will be stored in the EU. And although we're not a part of the EU and the UK anymore, we are a third country and your data will be treated under GDPR and looked after. But if you decide to go another free cloud services, you cannot get those assurances. So we really recommend that if you've got an education Office 365 from your school, it is safe to store it there. And in the future, it will be a norm rather than an exception to store your files in OneDrive rather than the server. The reassurance you have about that is once you've got your files and your folders into your OneDrive, that they can only be accessed by you, and the only other way that someone could get to them unless you invite them in and give them what's called a share link, and we'll cover that later in this session. Alongside that, we've got two other things that are in Office 365. We're not going to focus on these so much today. We've got Sharepoint. That's the space where you would put whole school shared files, a bit like the shared area you might on your school server, where you've got a teach shared area or a whole school shared area, and it can be accessed by anyone, which means that the files and the folders in there can be modified by anyone. In a similar fashion, Teams has a files tab, and we've looked at Teams in a few of the webinars last week for the small sessions. And the Teams tab works just like SharePoint. So SharePoint and Teams for collaboration and sharing and access by many, but OneDrive for you personally, and it's not designed that you should then be easily sharing a huge amount of files or folders across with other people. It's just one of those things where it remains private. We'll jump out of the presentation now. We're going to move across onto the other side, and I'll show you what this looks like for real. For those people that have just joined us, welcome along. If you've got any questions, please pop them into the conversation bar in the middle. I'll come back and answer those. Or there will be session pause points where you can just come and ask me and unmute your mic. Just for people that have joined, if you haven't noticed the bar at the top, it is being recorded. So please be aware that anything you say or if you turn your camera on, it will be recorded. Okay. So we have OneDrive here. I'm just going to take one step back. When you come into Office 365, this is the web version of Office 365. If you use Outlook Desktop for your emails, you'll need to go and open a web browser and go to www.office.com. It's the login page for Office 365. Pop in your email address and your password, and you'll get to an online version of either Outlook or you'll land here, which is the landing page for Office 365. You've got your apps stacked down the side, but you've also got them in the app launcher here, and OneDrive in the top of the app launcher. If you can't find it, you can go to all apps here, and they're organized in alphabetical order, and you'll be able to pick it up from there. Once you're in OneDrive, it will bring you into your area of one, and it's your private area, as I said in the presentation. The first time you use it, you may not see all these folders and files. It's because I've been using this one. You would see a blank space here with a little robot saying, welcome to your OneDrive, and start exploring. So it just depends on whether today you're coming to that OneDrive for the first time or whether it's an area you've used previously. As you can see in here, I've got content and I've been adding to that content, and in the dates here tell me exactly when I started, and that's for you to keep track. It also says who was the last person to modify it, and it tells me here under this column whether it's a private item or whether I'm sharing it with someone. So if I came down to there, I could see that this resource, this test meeting, is shared. So it tells me there whether I've decided to give access to somebody outside of my school, and I don't want, and I do or I don't want them to come in. So it's private if I don't want them to come in, and shared if I do want them to come in. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. So getting things into your OneDrive is normally the first place to start. On the ribbon at the top, this ribbon up here will change depending on what you're interacting with at the bottom. So if I tick something here, you'll notice the current ribbon I've got with new, upload, sync and automate will change, and I get different options. And that will follow if I untick the folder and I tick the file down the bottom, again, I will get slightly different options. And that's designed to field you down a route where it's more used to the document or the file you're dealing with or the folder that you're interacting with. And again, when you click out of it, you can click a white space anywhere around the outside, it will untick, or you can click the dot again and it will untick. So you've got those options to navigate. To get information in, you press the arrow and you'll get a little drop-down menu. If you want to create a new folder, you can do that straight away there. So if I click this folder, this might be, let's say, governors, create, and then instantly there I've got governors. Now we're working extensively today in the online version, but there is in some of our fuller training sessions, because this is a bite-sized training session today, we talk about how to sync OneDrive to your computer. Anyone that's looking for it, if you're working on a Windows computer, it will be one of the programs on there from the start menu, or it will be in the bottom right-hand corner next to the time and the date where the little arrow is pointing up on the taskbar. You sign into that and you will then have all of these folders locally on your laptop. We're working out the web version today, so we're going to focus on how to manage your files here. In addition to pressing new and then folder and creating a folder and building it anew here, you can bring in your previous files or folders. So if you click the upload button, if you're looking for just a file on your computer, you can click files. If you're looking for a folder which contains other folders or files, you can click on that, and then it will search on your computer. It will open up your normal Windows view, and it will then allow you to browse through, find the folder or the files you want, and you can bring them in that way. You could also highlight the folder you want on your computer, and you will then decide to drag your folder across. So you literally drag it from the window where you normally have all your personal folders or your shared areas, and you release it over here, and it will say a copy plus sign, and then it will start to upload. Word of warning, if it's a large folder and it contains your lifetime's planning or something, you need to allow some time for that to sync up to the cloud the first time. Once it's there, you can work out of your OneDrive, and that becomes the new version that you use. But as it currently stands, the first time, be on a really good internet connection, and if you know you've got a good one at home, that's fine, but you might want to do it in school if not. And also make sure you're not about to close the lid on your laptop, or your computer's going to go into hibernation, because it will interrupt the upload and it might stop halfway through. So when you start to do that for the first time, that's the way to do it. You can also sync your OneDrive to your desktop computer, a bit like signing into that OneDrive app by pressing the sync button. Again, we cover that in a fuller training session, but it's there for you just to understand. The automate button we'll leave today, but you can have automated functions in here called flows, so that if you upload, for instance, a file with a certain name, if it's got meeting in it or minutes in it, it will automatically sift it into a folder for you. So then it takes care of organizing your files and folders, and it's an automated feature. Again, that's one of the longer sessions that we run, but we're just showing you where these features are today. So if I went into governance, I click the folder and in I go. This might be, we'll have full governors, and you might have a subcommittees folder or something like that. And here I've also got the option to create a Word document, Excel spreadsheet, PowerPoint, or a OneNote for keeping notes, or I can make a Microsoft form in here as well. You could drag any file format you like into the cloud. So it could be a PDF, it could be if you use Smart Notebook or Active Inspire from Promethean, those could go in there. The thing to remember, and the reason why you often have it synced to your computer, is that it will need to find the relevant software to open the file format. And if you're working out the cloud, Microsoft have made it really easy to use their file formats. But if you're using something like a Smart Notebook file, that's where you would open this from your desktop, and it would just become a shared drive on your desktop, and then you just open your Smart Notebook from there. If you want to know more about that, we're running some full training sessions on OneDrive later in the year, and you'd be welcome to come back and see how you set all that up at the same time. Today, I'm going to start a Word document, and my Word document opens as another tab in the web browser. I don't need to worry about having Office installed on my computer. It's got most of the functionality of the desktop version. If I did decide I wanted to open it in the desktop version, I can go to here and I can click Open in Desktop App. And you will need to be signed in the desktop version of Office 2019 or Office 365 desktop. You sign in the top right corner. It would then open up on your computer, but it would still be saving back up to the cloud to your OneDrive. So any changes you make are then synced through. In here, it might be, I don't know, full governors meeting, and we will have an agenda, and then we can put it on there. So it might be matters arising and so forth. There we go, and it's typing straight in. It's there and live in real time. At the moment, I could invite people in, so I could share directly from in the document, and you get a box that pops up, but I will also show you how to use that pop-up box in just a tick, because the same share box is over there in OneDrive. When you're editing live in the web apps, as they're called, everything is saving automatically back to your OneDrive, so you don't need to worry about going to File and Save As and where to save it. You've just opened it from your OneDrive, so it knows where it's living. You can do things like rename documents on the fly. So this might be, instead of called document, this is called meeting minutes. And I click back in there, and you can see it's automatically renamed. It's telling me it's saved. And when I finished, I don't have to worry about saving. I just close the tab in the web browser, and there it is. It's just renamed, and it's ready to go. I've realized I've created that meeting minutes outside of the folder there, so I pick it up and I can drag it in, and it will move itself into my full meeting minutes, and it's in there. If you're using the web version, you want to move something back out again, you tick the box there. And then on the ellipses on the side, it hides extra options. You select Move To, you click your OneDrive, it will bring your folders in. So I could go into Governors, and then I could move that back to there, and it would move it out of the full Governors Meetings folder, and it move it back to there. Again, one of the reasons why people often have from the cloud and also locally on your computer is that it's easier to drag and drop those around to some people's perception, compared to having it to do it in the cloud with the move option. But both are perfectly possible. It's just probably one extra step if you're doing it in the cloud. So once you've got your work there and you're busy editing, you may want to share. Now, traditionally, we may have been attaching files to emails and emailing them to somebody else in the school, and they've added their comments and they email them back, and we end up with version 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then someone's got that hideous job of merging. You don't have to do that anymore. You can tick the folder or tick the file. You can create a share link. Now, when we click a share link, usually by default, it says that anyone with that link can edit that file. It's not very secure, and certainly for GDPR reasons, you wouldn't want to leave it like that. So you press the button there. You can choose anyone in your organization. So this organization is called Contoso. With that link, it will say the name of your school. You can have people that have previously or got existing access as an option there, or you can name specific people. If you are going to leave it to anyone with this link, you need to make sure that you consider some options here. You've got full control over what happens with that file. So you can allow people to edit it, which means they'll be able to open up that document and join you live in real time in that document. And you see them as a flag. and they would be in there working with you. Or you can untick the allow editing box, and now it's a view only document. So you can rest assured that no one's going to modify your work, because they can read it, but they can't touch it. I'm going to say allow editing. You can also enable a review only mode there. So either way, you've got control of that. You can additionally set a date when this link will expire. So I'm going to put in Friday as when it's going to expire. And you could have the protection of a password that you could tell somebody separately if you wish. And if you're telling them the password, it means that if somebody else got rid of that open anyone's share link, they couldn't just get in, they'd be asked for the password. If I untick allow editing, I might want to block download. So you can slide the block download button across, and it stops someone taking a copy and putting it in their OneDrive, or also taking a copy and installing it, keeping it on their computer, downloading it, etc. So you've got all those options. I'm going to say specific people today, which gives me the ability there to say I'm going to allow editing. If you're giving them editing rights, it doesn't give you the option to block the downloads. I press apply, and now I want to set that up. So I am going to enter in here colleague. I'm going to share my message with Daryl. So I'm going to say, hi Daryl, please add your items for the meeting. So this is instead of emailing it to each other. You can see there's a nice little friendly message. I could still get a copy link and pop that in. I could open it up in Outlook and push it across that way. But really, with OneDrive working the way it does, you don't need to have those attached links or additional links. You can just send it. It will arrive in the inbox of the person that's notified. They click the link, and then they can access it from their OneDrive. And I'll show you in just a tick where those shared files live. I'm going to press send, and then off it goes. The link said, I get the green tick, and then for me, that's now a shared document. So very soon that will update, just did it then, from private to shared. So that's now telling me that other people have access to a file in my private OneDrive. So you've always got control over that. If you wish to change that, you can tick your file, click the information tab at the top. This has to be done from online, not the desktop version, as well as having a nice little preview of what's inside there. I can go down here, and I've got an option called Manage Access. When I click Manage Access, it will tell me, if I drop down that box there, that Daryl has access. And if I wish to take that away again, I press the cross, and then that would stop Daryl being able to use the link that I sent him in the email, and it will be absolutely useless. So you can easily control it, or you can click the Stop Sharing button at the top, and that will take everyone out at once if you share it to multiple people. The other beauty of having it online is that you've got here an activity log of everything that was done with that file, so you can see if something was changed, who changed it, when it happened, what was the time, and so forth. And down the bottom, you get a little bit of information about it. On the dots in the middle, it always hides additional options. So as well as having the ribbon at the top up here, you've got things like the share link, the copy link, the manage access. This also can be where you download, but you can download a copy there. To be honest, if you've got it up in your OneDrive, you may as well keep it and edit it in your OneDrive. Down here, a really useful thing is version history. And if it's been edited, you can see there's version 1 and version 2. If I did share this link and somebody forgot that this was my original planning, and maybe they decided to change it for the lesson planning for their class because they're doing some distance learning tomorrow, I could roll back to a previous version by clicking version 1 or version 2. And if it had gone forward with previous versions, and I can still get back to that other version before those changes were made, and I can start afresh from that point, a bit like going back to a fork in the road. It's not everything is lost because it's been saved over the top. I've now got a way of going back because I'm using OneDrive. If you do delete anything, so deleting your file, the delete button's there, it's also on the dots in the middle. Your recycle bin by default will keep anything that's been deleted for 30 days. It's then deleted and it goes into an administrator's recycle bin, and depending on the policy that's set on your Office 365 in the background, it will then be retained in a second recycle bin before it's fully deleted at some later date. We discussed sharing. Well, on the side, the options that I've been using so far is just my files. That's how I'm seeing what I have here. I can see as well on the left, I've got a recent files options. that will show me files that I've edited in the near and distant future, distant past, sorry, and it will allow me to jump back and get to those easily. Shared files, if I was Daryl now and I had that file shared with me, everything I've had shared with me is stacked up in a nice, neat list here, and I can get to that. The shared files that you've had, or folders you've had sent to you, you cannot reorganize them, I'm afraid. They are going to stay there as in a list. You can sift them by name or date or the person who's shared with you, but what you can't do is organize them into neat folders. If you want to organize them into a neat folder, take a copy, save it to your My Files, and then put it into your own folders. If you're going to edit a file that has been shared with you, please bear in mind you are editing the original sat in the other person's OneDrive, and any changes that you make are going to overwrite the other person's file. And although you can go back and you can get to a previous version, you probably aren't going to be very popular with the person who shared you the resource. So just remember that on the shared. And then down the bottom, you've got recycle bin. Here at the bottom, this is when I mentioned at the beginning of the training, you've got SharePoints and also the file sections in Teams. These are shared libraries. You can create more shared libraries there. You can also create them in Teams, but these are shortcuts to the files tabs in my different teams. If it was my staff team, go to my staff team, and this is the file section in my staff team. So although I'm not over in Teams, which might be over here, and here's my staff team, and here's my file section, here's the same files, I can access them in here as well. So this shows me all of the folders across the whole of my staff team, not just the ones in the general channel. And it allows me to get to them here in one place without roaming away from my OneDrive. So the philosophy from a lot of the Office 365 Microsoft products is to stay in one place, not have to move to separate tabs, and as much as possible, you simplify your life and you keep it all in one window. Going back to my files, as well as putting in a share link, if I retick that, you can also send a copy link. It's got the same options that you have here about anyone or named people, so choose them just like we did with the shared link. Once you've got the copied link, if you wanted to, and let's say you were using Teams and you were saying to staff, I'm going to make this an open file, I can copy the link because it's available to anyone. I could paste it into the staff team if it was in posts. So this overlaps with some of the webinars we did last week. I could paste the link into there, and then I could send it into the posts for the general channel of the staff team, and then anyone could pick up that file from there as well. So it's another way, instead of sending a share link, you can do that through your teams too. So there's lots of different ways into that. I think it's a good point to pause and go and take a few questions. So I'm just going to pop back over and see if anyone's got anything in the chat. At this point as well, if you want to unmute, feel free to do so. So if you forget this sharing password, can it be retrieved? No, but you can reset it. So you can't retrieve it, but you can just overwrite it with a new password if you need to. So there's no great problem with that. And you remain in control as the person that originally had it. How can you stop children from saving their work on a file? If you've got children that are working in their OneDrive, and there's not many schools that do because of the way that Teams works, and you'd either be using OneNote class notebook or you might be using assignments. But if children have saved work on their file, they can easily go back to the version history and view a previous version. But remember, OneDrive is for that non-sharing elements for your personal work. So if you have got older pupils or students in secondary school that are using OneDrive to store their work, they may collaborate on some project work, particularly in secondary with other students, but a lot of the time it's their personal work. If they're sharing, one of the things that you do when you introduce them to OneDrive is that you make them very aware that if somebody else has access to your file, they could change it in some way, but that's what the version history does for you. It allows you to go back to the point when that last change was made that you didn't like. Someone's asked here with the copy link, does it work in the same way as the share link? In other words, users can edit and copy the link there or read only. So yeah, if you leave it for anyone, it works exactly the same as the share link. Anyone could take a copy of that link and send it on again, which is one of the reasons why I say it's not a good idea to use anyone can access this link without either applying some extra restrictions, or I would wholly recommend use specific people, because then if somebody picks up a copy of that link from somewhere else on the internet, or someone shares that link that you've shared, it means they can't get back into your OneDrive and it's still private and safe for you. Someone's asked, can I delete what a child has saved on a file? You wouldn't probably bother wasting any time. You would just go to the version before their changes was made, because you can see what they were doing. If I pop back over, I'll show you that. So in here, if I went into my governance file again and I went into my meeting minutes and I had a look on the information on the side, I can see from the activity what was done at certain times. So I'd find when that student had last engaged in that activity, then I'd go to the dots here in the middle and I'd choose my version history and I'd roll back to the version when they last made those changes instead of undoing it. If they've saved it because they've shut the file down, they've been editing it, there's no way to press undo or something like that to get rid of the changes they've made. You just simply roll back in the versioning history and you get back that way. Any other questions at this point? No. Okay, we are very nearly there. For anyone that's on here and thinking they've got other things they need to get to, don't fear, we will nearly be finishing here. If you want to open something in here, you've also got the option directly from the browser. I've ticked this file, it picks up as a Word file, so I can choose directly from here without going into it whether I want to open it in the browser or open it in the app. The options that are also hidden over here on the side, you can get to the version history. Just like add the move to, you've got the copy to button, so it's got that highlighted. I might want to make a copy of this and put it somewhere else in my OneDrive, but I may want to copy it out and put it into one of the staff teams. So as well as putting it into the posts, you could go to the staff team. You might say, I'm going to go to the general channel of the staff team. There are the files in there, and I might move a copy there, and it would then throw a copy across and it would pop it into the staff team as well. So you've got this movement once you're in the cloud and working in the cloud to move easily between personal OneDrive and either file sections and teams or SharePoints. But the file section in a team really is a SharePoint. It's just dressed up as something else, but essentially they are the same thing. You can, if you've mapped OneDrive to your computer, if you've also mapped your SharePoint, and you do it in a similar way. So when you go to files, if you press the sync button there, that will also map the SharePoint or the file section from your team to your computer. And then you can just do the traditional method on your Windows desktop. You can copy and paste a file, or you can drag one across. And as long as you're dragging it into these live cloud locations, it will upload and show here for everyone else, or it will upload and it will show in your personal OneDrive. As well as clicking on the side to navigate, a lot of people are trying to go backwards and forwards by pressing the backwards and forwards on the browser. So if I went to my files, I went to administration, operations, got an operations review there. I don't have to press backwards and forwards up here. I've got a file path, and like a trail of breadcrumbs, I can move up and down the depth of folders by clicking on the one above. If I wanted to jump straight from operations back to my files, I can click on it there. So it's a way to navigate around without you having to press backwards and forwards. As far as views are concerned of your folders and files, you can change that. I've got mine in a list currently. I can have a condensed, compact list if you're trying to get more on screen, or I can have it in tiles. Some people find that useful, particularly around documents, because it gives you a little preview of what's in that document once mine syncs through, so I can see tiny bit of writing there, it previews it up. If it was a PowerPoint, I'd see the first slide. So it's up to you what you'd like it as, and you can also choose how you'd like it sorted. The moment I've just got it as the default. You can either sort them there, or you can click on the columns here and it's sorted by name, date, modified, and so forth, or whether it's being shared in private. So it's up to you how you would like to have it led out. If you haven't got the OneDrive app, you can also click on Get the OneDrive app there, and it will take you to the download link, and you can then install it on your computer. But if you're using a Windows 10 computer, OneDrive comes on there, so you just need to sign into it. So as far as getting you used to OneDrive this afternoon, and then branching across to show you how it might link with shared drives such as SharePoint or Teams file sections, those were the areas we're intending to cover. So now it's really throwing it over to you to say, have you got any additional questions? Feel free to unmute, or do you want to pop anything in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer those for you. Over to you. Nobody has any questions? No? Okay, I'll stop the recording, but I'll remain here for a little bit. Thank you for coming along.